I'm Bryant Frazer. I'm the editorial director of StudioDaily at StudioDaily.com. If you're not familiar with us, we're a news site for this industry, so check us out. I'm here on a panel. We're going to talk about aerial and UAV cinematography from a creative standpoint, regulatory standpoint. I guess I will start. I think we have a video that we're going to show. This video is courtesy one of our panelists. It's Drew Roberts from Wild Rabbit Aerial Productions. So we're going to check that out, and then I'm going to come back and introduce our speakers to you, and we will get started.
Shiny head's blocking it.
Right.
If you didn't know why drones and UAVs were such a compelling tool for storytelling and cinematography, that video from Drew will kind of give you an idea. I want to start out by introducing our three panelists, and we've got, starting from the other side of the stage, we have Robert C. Rodriguez. He's the president and CEO of the Society of Aerial Cinematography. Next up, we have Drew Roberts, owner, chief pilot, Wild Rabbit Aerial Productions. And then closest to me, we have Tom Hallman. He's the VP of Business Development for Approved Technologies. And maybe we can start, because I know you three have deep background in aerial cinematography in general, as well as drone UAV cinematography. Maybe just starting with you, Robert, just briefly, a couple lines about you, your organization, what you do, and what your background is in this specific area.
Sure. The Society of Aerial Cinematography is something that was founded back in 2013, where we saw a need for a safe place for professionals to go find their peers and discuss issues and things they're finding on set. Sort of just a safe place to go and gather more information from each other, like-minded individuals. And, we've been doing that, like I said, since 2013, and we put a lot of emphasis on the whole post-production workflow, the production and acquisition technologies, and of course, drone-related technology.
All right, Drew?
Yeah, we started Wild Rabbit back in 2013, just really compelled by the UAV technology and wanted to use it for a new type of visual storytelling. We've been working with the technology and growing and learning with it, and having a lot of fun along the way. I think the industry is at a pretty great place right now, and we're excited to see where it goes in the future.
Just since we just watched that video, was every shot in that video captured with a UAV?
There was a couple shots that were done with a cable cam, a couple shots at the airport and at night, which are outside of our current rules. We supplemented that shot with a cable cam, so we can talk more about that later.
Absolutely. Okay, Tom?
Again, my name is Tom Hallman. My background in aerial cinematography comes from the last 9 years. I ran Pictovision, doing a lot of full-size helicopter cinematography. We got into drones because it made a lot of sense. Got the first 333 exemptions. I was part of that group. Now I've gone off on my own, started a company called Proof Technologies, implementing drones into the airspace, and a reseller for Shotover. It's my first partnership out on my own.
Okay. So we've got a lot to talk about, especially in the area of law and regulation and who is and isn't allowed to fly UAVs and what those restrictions look like. But I wanted to start by talking a little bit about the creative possibilities and sort of where we think we are and how drone technology is currently affecting aerial cinematography. And I thought maybe, Robert, do you want to address that?
Yeah, absolutely. The technology has advanced tremendously, and it's just the buy-in point now has come down so low. So I think we've been doing this for, I don't know what you guys say in aerial cinematography for the drones, probably for the past 10 years. That's happened through helicopter and some of the UAV technology. But it's only because of the buy-in and the cost of entry has become so low that everyone has seen it mainstream. It's brought a lot of creativity. You could see from some of the shots that Drew brought up there how intense some of these shots are, how you can't accomplish this with full scale or ground. But we always say that they complement your traditional methods of acquisition on set. And that's one of the key things that I'll probably say that throughout the entire presentation here, but we say these are intended to complement and not replace anything that you could get traditionally on set.
Right, I think there's a danger, the fact that it's become so accessible so quickly, and it is something radically different for a lot of cinematographers who aren't experienced in this area. It looks very, very attractive, but at the same time, it can be overused, right? And these aerial shots can become cliches in demo videos really quickly.
Yeah, we saw that a lot with like Steadicam technology, for example. When that came out, everyone was using it, and you had the people that loved it and the people that hated it. And it's still widely used. Some of our members are Steadicam operators, and they're obviously anyone in the industry knows they're widely used today. But there runs the risk of people trying to use this technology in place of those, just because it's the cool shot and the cool way to get it. But yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. I think the trends and the technology getting better. The cameras that are coming with this, or the way that they fly with the cameras, the ones that are available to fly them now, the payload is coming much smaller. You see manufacturers like Aerial and others that are specifically creating cameras to fly. It's just going to get better and better. You're going to see more of it before it hits that plateau and tapers off.
Right, and that's another point. You see cameras like the Alexa Mini. Panasonic just put down a slimmed down VariCam that's basically, essentially, they want you to fly it on drones and things like this. Because a lot of the really inexpensive solutions that you fly a GoPro type camera on, you're not going to have the deliverable from that you're going to need for a professional job. You're not going to be able to intercut it with other footage on a professional job. So it's really important to kind of understand what the limitations are of the camera platform you're using, not just what you're flying it on.
Yeah, they go hand in hand. You have to understand production. You have to understand how to work on set. You have to understand the full technology start to finish and what your client deliverables are before you could attach something to the camera. If you can't figure out how to do this on the ground, and you can't actually apply the technology on set on the ground with cameras, you're not going to do any better strapping it to a rig and flying it in the sky.
Okay. So, I mean, this has been, for a few years at NAB now, we've had a huge presence for drones at the show. They're one of the coolest things is we were setting up for this this panel. They were giving away a drone next door. Everyone was very excited about it. A lot of people are interested in it. And maybe anybody on the panel who wants to address this, because I'm kind of moving into the question now of who is this right for? Not only who is and isn't allowed to fly these at this point under the current regulatory regime, but also maybe who should and who shouldn't. Who is this really right for, and who might it not be right for? Do you have any thoughts? At some of the price points, it feels like everybody could do it, but should everybody be doing it?
Drew, I'll let you guys take it.
Okay. I mean, that's a great question. Obviously, it depends on the size of the production, the type of work that's being done. You know, anything that's being commercially operated, you know, obviously you need to operate in the current rules set up by the FAA and by the film offices, and that's the only way to go if you're operating commercially. My company, as well as Pictovision, Tom used to work with, and many others have put the time and the work into obtaining their 333 exemption, which allows us to operate on closed film sets and television sets legally, and it allows us to obtain the proper permits to do that. And you know, there's different tools, different technologies, but we all see them. They're not created equal, but we use them in just about every situation, from the monster drones down to the small ones. They all have their place on set, depending on what you're trying to execute.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about those exemptions you just referred to, because right now, if you're flying these commercially, you're sort of subject to a different level of scrutiny than hobbyists who can, you know, buy a DJI and basically do whatever they want with it. But if you're in this as a professional, you have to get an exemption from the FAA to be allowed to use these at all. So can you talk a little bit about that exemption process, what's involved in getting it, but then also, because it goes hand in hand, these rules are changing as we speak. There are discussions, right, about possibly loosening them. So maybe an overview of where we are on that front would be great.
Yeah, I can jump in on this. Basically, the current rule is there's no small UAS operations for commercial purposes, and so we've applied for an exemption from that rule, and so that allows us to operate commercially. There's two different types of exemptions currently. There's one for data collection, and then there's one for closed set motion picture and television operations. We have both, so we're able to do both types of work. We're able to operate on closed sets, around people, close proximity to talent, to crew, to private property, and essentially, you can either file the paperwork yourself, it doesn't cost anything, or you can hire a UAV consultant or a UAV lawyer. There's plenty of great people out there, and you just put your paperwork in, and the MPTOM, the Motion Picture and Television Operational Manual, that's a proprietary document that we built. That's essentially our best practices on set. That's our operational standards, and so that's what we, my company, has to hold ourselves to each and every time we take the drone off on set. And so it's something that we take pride in, and we stick to very strictly.
It's a big distinction, too. A lot of people don't realize just because you have an exemption doesn't mean you can do closed set aerial cinematography. That is a special extra bar, higher bar that we had to reach. And we have to do all these manuals to keep the FAA happy. But what that allows us, by agreeing to have much more stringent safety requirements, we can do things that a real estate agent can't do. We have training, we have logs, we have manuals, but we are, because we're up to this bar, we can fly closer than 500 feet to participating people. So we can get closer to actors, people who are part of the set, but not over the general public.
And those are things that you have to apply for a special permit in addition to the exemption to be allowed to do as a cinematographer.
Exactly. So for every shoot, so you have an exemption, that's sort of your driver's license. That means you can do it legally and get paid. Then for each shoot, we have to get permission from the local FAA agents. We have to file a flight plan and tell them exactly what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, who's going to be there, and down to what the shots are going to be. We often give them a shot list so that they can sign off that, yeah, this is going to be reasonably safe, as well as a COA, Certificate of Authorization for the area. There's currently, the FAA is giving out blanket certificates, or COAs, so that if you're 5 miles or further from the closest towered airport and stay within under 200 feet, you don't have to harass them with paperwork. More often than not, for the cinema, we are closer or we want to fly above 200 feet, and we have to go through this whole extra level of approval process.
So now I think there's been some suggestion that the current rules, in some sense, the current rules are kind of one size fits all. They're the same rules are applying to very small, almost hobbyist-sized drones as to much larger, potentially more dangerous craft. And as it stands right now, you need some kind of pilot certification, right, to get the exemption to fly these. Now, I understand that's one of the things that is under discussion, at least for the smaller units. We might see a loosening of the rules in terms of exactly how much is required. Can somebody kind of speak to where that, what that process might be?
We'll let the pilot answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
The current rule is to operate commercial UAS, you need to be a licensed pilot. That ranges from a sport up to a commercial pilot. Anything in there will suffice for the rules. And essentially, the way I see it, the FAA wanted UAS pilots to have respect for the airspace, to understand the rules and really the severity of what airspace is and what happens if you breach the airspace that you're supposed to operate within. And also it's something that the FAA can take away or suspend if the pilots are not following the rules of their COA or the rules of their MPTOM. So I know it's definitely under debate. If they do away with the rules, I'm fine with it either way. I think I'm happy that I went through the process to get my pilot's license. It's something nice for my resume going on and into the future of the industry.
There's been a lot of discussions within the FAA and a lot of advisory committees trying to figure out that, like as you pointed out before, when you say drone, we're talking about everything from a Predator, down to a little toy that you buy at the drugstore, and have a single set of rules that cover things that literally weigh ounces to 55-pound drones that we're flying. It's just not attainable. So there is a strong movement to have a micro drone rule. So for things like the Phantom, most people know that, maybe the rules should be a little bit different than the 55-pound big heavy lifters that we're flying for the cinema market. The risks are different. So the rules are argued should be a little bit different, including the pilot's requirement that perhaps a pilot certificate for drone flying is more appropriate. And it is. Most of what you learn as a private pilot doesn't apply, right? We're not doing cross-country flights. We don't have to map our fueling and weather. But it's really important that there be specific training. And so the FAA is trying to figure out what is the right balance and how do you implement that and regulate it.
Is there, we've only got 3 people on the panel today, so we're not exactly taking a straw poll of the UAV community. But, is there a sense, is the community as a whole united in the idea that these rules should be loosened? Or are there different factions where some people maybe feel like it should be tied down? I'm just trying to get a sense of how much agreement or disagreement or how well everyone's kind of, is there a single voice or are there different ideas about how to proceed?
I think in the cinema world, I think there's a fairly cohesive voice as far as what rules should be laxened and what rules should be a little bit stricter, I feel. Currently, the 500-foot safety radius that we have to operate under, which means anything within 500 feet of our flight path, we must control that space. We must have permission from property owners and all vehicles and vessels that are not part of the closed production need to be moved out of the area. Essentially, we have to control that 500-foot zone. And if you look at 500 feet on a map, it's pretty big. If we have a shoot in downtown Los Angeles, we're having to close multiple streets, multiple blocks, control pedestrians for a pretty big area. And that's the one thing that's a big hindrance to us currently. In the film industry. It doesn't affect the data collection industries as much because you're flying out in the middle of nowhere generally, but for me, that's the big role that is hanging us up currently.
And it does depend on who you ask, because it's, like you're saying, I think collectively for the cinema industry, I think that one voice, I guess it really isn't a single voice, but everyone collectively, we all feel the same about it.
Isn't it your organization?
Yeah, a little more work on that. But in the world of like the hobbyists and other places there, it doesn't mean that you can't go pick something up and start learning, but that also depends on where in the country you are. In Los Angeles, where I think all of us are from, there's really strict ordinances out there against what you're doing with drones. So if you're going out there, you're flying something as small as the Inspire, the police now have sort of this checklist of what to go through. So now you're sort of at risk of losing your gear to confiscation. We've got a good friend of ours and part of the organization, one of our lawyers is dealing with a lot of that, getting the phone calls all the time of, hey, I was just at the field, cops just rolled up on me, and they took my gear. So it really depends on where you are and who you ask when it comes to that question, if there is one thought of how we should address this. Pilot's license overkill, I mean, probably. You do have to have an understanding of airspace, and you do have to understand what you're getting into from a safety perspective and aspect. Like Drew was saying, that 500 foot and what closed set 2 means is not closed in the sense of you're on a soundstage. It's everyone involved in the shoot is actually part of that set. So they are all under that protection, and they all know what they're getting themselves into. But once you get into this world, it's of production. It's all the safety aspect. That's really what we're after. There are ways to get up there and learn to do this and go through it without getting your pilot's license, without going through the whole process. But you just have to sort of really stay small, keep safe. And I think what's the limitation now? It's under it's under a pound. It's under half a pound of what you could fly without registering one with the FAA, and then without going through any of this process.
Yeah, that's an interesting question about enforcement, because the FAA doesn't really have any power to enforce this. So it does fall on, I guess, local law enforcement in a lot of cases, right? And if that's inconsistent, then people often need help negotiating that.
And then it's open to interpretation by whomever shows up on.
Right. Now, I don't know if this is a dirty little secret of this business, but it seems to me that a lot of people are probably flying drones commercially without the proper certification. Would you say that's true?
100%.
Yeah. Nothing secret about it.
Because we're competing against them.
Right.
That people will come in who don't have the safety processes that we do, so they don't have the costs that we do. And so they come in and they undercut for the experience. And those are the guys that cause accidents and make things worse for the rest of us.
Yeah, it's essentially what it comes down to for us in operating legally is it's an insurance game. It's if the worst happens, are you covered? Is your company covered? Is your client covered? And the answer to those questions has to be yes, always. You can't put your company or your client in a situation where they could be liable for an incident on set. So we have to follow every rule to the T to ensure that everything's if the worst happens, that everything is covered.
And at the high end, the studios, the high-end customers have figured all this out. And lawyers run the business.
Sure.
And the insurance companies run the lawyers. So we're seeing that at the high end, they are requiring, they know what the requirements are, and they're requiring proof that you have insurance, that you have a certificate, you have a pilot's license. As you get into the medium and the lower end, it's a lot looser-gooser.
Yes.
Yeah, it is absolutely, and there are quite a few companies out there that do have their 333, but they don't necessarily follow the rules of their COA, and that's one thing that we're currently kind of combating and trying to, I guess, change the way that people see the industry, because right now, you say you have a 333 and you do shots X, Y, and Z that are not legal. Then when that client speaks to a company that does follow the rules, and we turn down work all the time because we say we can't do this, and we get the remark, well, so-and-so did it, or we've seen these shots on their reels, how come you can't do that? And then a lot of times productions will go to the companies that will say yes. But again, it comes back to insurance. If something happened, nobody would be covered.
But that's where experience comes in as well, because some of the things I've seen Drew and Tom and others do is you don't ever really say no. You offer them alternatives that you can accomplish and help them. So having that production etiquette and that understanding of how to do things traditionally really helps them get the shot. So if they're going through there and director is asking them to do something you're not going to accomplish, you cannot legally do, he can offer alternatives, and typically pretty happy with it. But when you come in with others, it's that'll just do whatever it is. It's really hard for guys like these to compete with them, because they're coming in at hundreds, where a day on set is costing thousands typically, and it's education of everyone involved. The studios, like Tom is saying, and the lawyers and that, they're completely aware of it, but it doesn't stop certain productions and certain producers to come in and see the 333, expect that's all you need. They don't know about the NPTOM, they don't know what else is on there, they just know that one document, and they allow them to come on set and shoot, and they have a license for agriculture.
And some people, as you mentioned, might not have fully worked through their head what the consequences are of especially a larger drone flight gone wrong, and how much havoc you could cause with that. So does this cause friction between the more established aerial cinematographers and some of the newer hotshots who are coming in and trying to get cool visuals?
I'd say a little bit. I mean, there's not a lot of tension in the industry. I mean, for the most part, the people at the higher end, we all work together. We all get along really, really well. It's a big family, honestly. There are people that definitely you need to watch out for sure, and not to go down that path so much. But yeah, I mean, it is frustrating at times, but I mean, at the end of the day, it'll work itself out in the long run. Yeah.
Frustration's the right word, more than tension. Yeah. That it's frustrating that we're doing everything correctly, and then occasionally losing jobs. The guys are clearly not following the rules.
And I mean, there's nothing you can really do about it. You just keep doing what you do. You
got to play your own game.
Yep.
And that was on the aerial cinematography crowd, just on the drone market. I think the friction that we saw early on was with the full-scale helicopter pilots and the aerial cinematographers, as well as some of the people that thought that we were taking over what they were doing on set, trying to replace the Russian arm and jibs and certain things like that. That's where the tension happened early on. But I think everyone has sort of learned to embrace the technology. And let's face it, when you get on set and you have this drone up there in this rig, everyone comes over. Everyone wants to see what this thing does. All eyes are on it. So once they started to understand the technology and how to implement it with traditional gear, I think that sort of broke that barrier that we had with the people that hated us originally for quote-unquote taking their jobs.
Exactly, and one thing that we do as a service provider is work early on in the creative process to help the creative team understand how to properly implement the tools. Because a lot of times we work with directors or DPs that haven't used drones yet, and we see it as a really important part of what we do is to help them learn how to use the tools properly and use them with a Russian arm or with a full-size helicopter to complement the types of shots that they can do and the types of shots that we can do with an aerial platform.
Okay. Well, can we maybe switch gears a little bit and sort of talk about the current state of technology? And I know there are a lot of things you'll see, in bullet points. They're getting faster all the time. I think they're getting safer all the time in terms that they're not as likely to, crash into something when you send them a return home command. I mean, do you see? Maybe that's on the lower end and then on the higher end. But I mean, what are some of the technological factors that are coming out in the trends that are driving UAVs to become safer, more effective, cost-effective, budget-effective, and again serving creativity and storytelling rather than just ticking off a bullet point of cool things I can do when you hire me to shoot your spot.
Well, I think the biggest change is there's now a commercial market.
Right.
That forever we were arguing with the drone companies, please make us a commercial grade drone. And they would say, great, how many are you going to buy? 2, 4? It just didn't make a return on their investment. That has changed with the exemption process. That companies, all over the world are now seeing an opportunity in not just entertainment, but in industry, agriculture, pipeline, power lines, all that kind of stuff. So there's finally a market for these big, serious companies to invest in the technology, and they're finally coming out with truly commercial grade products, not just hobby grade things that were beefed up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the most exciting thing for us is just reliability. The off-the-shelf commercial platforms that are available to us today, they're extremely reliable. We've recently started working with the Free Fly Altas, and the peace of mind that I have as a pilot, knowing that I can trust in my gear and I can put it through hell and back pretty much, and know that it's going to come back safely. That's worth every dime you could ever spend. And the commercial drones aren't necessarily getting less expensive, but we're happy to pay for that reliability, and knowing that when my company's on set, our name is on the line, that we're not going to have an incident like that. You can't pay for that kind of stability. So.
There's also the point now with battery technology and how that's becoming safer and a lot more cost effective. The technology is growing, allowing you to get more flight time, charge them up quicker and safer. And there's a emerging point as well where you start to see some like Free Fly and DJI, and these guys are not in the drone pavilion. They consider themselves more production gear, so they're deeper in with the rest of the group. And you start to see that they understand what's being used, how they're being used out there, how the gimbals are being used as handheld, how they want to attach those to the sky. So they don't really see themselves as just drone companies anymore providing a service to the drone. They see themselves as production gear.
How about from the standpoint of how quickly, I mentioned earlier, new technology, new features being added. I know we saw, for a few years here at NAB, very recently, there was an arms race where new cameras were concerned. Every year you'd come to NAB and all your favorite companies, either camera manufacturers or not camera manufacturers, seemed like they were scrambling to put out new cameras that are going to make the cameras you invested in a year or two ago obsolete. As far as return on investment on your investment in this technology, UAV technology, is it a challenge, or is the technology stable enough that you're not consistently, trying to chase your tail and upgrade to meet the newest feature points? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, we're constantly trying to have the newest and best gear. I mean, that's kind of the name of the game is having the tools to give the director and DP the shots that they want. And currently, what everybody wants is big lenses, big cameras, and full focus iris and zoom up in the air. And that's kind of the next big step for the industry. And I know Tom can talk a little bit about that with the with the new shot over drone. It's something that everybody's excited about, and just being able to not having to say no. We can't fly that lens. We can't fly focus iris zoom. We can't pull off the shots that you want is slowly that's slowly going away, which is exciting for us.
Yeah, it's not changing quick enough. I think to your point that we're begging the manufacturers to actually build the tools that we want, really commercial grade, reliable products. We're happy to pay a little bit more. Not exuberant rates, and they're responding. And it goes back to the market that they can finally, there's enough of a market that they can pull the trigger and build these things. And so I think this is going to be a big year for the high-end drone industry.
Okay, so it sounds like the question I asked is more exactly the opposite. You're still in a point where you need to communicate more ideas about what's required to satisfy your customers and get the correct shot.
Yeah, absolutely, but it needs to come at the right time. You don't want to have a system that you don't want to have $200,000 up in the air if there's a flight controller that you can't exactly rely on. So I think it's all coming at the right pace. You definitely can. The industry has gotten ahead of itself at several points and times, and so I think, we're happy for products to be thoroughly vetted before they're put out on the market, and we definitely appreciate that the manufacturers are doing that and not just rushing things to production because they can make a buck on it. We want that reliability and stability, and it's frustrating, but we'll wait for it. We'll wait. It'll be ready when it's ready.
Impatiently.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's a good point that Drew makes. It's at the end of the day, we have to also ensure that the return on investment from the manufacturer side is there, because we lose a lot of good people that, they build something out that's not supported because they're competing with everyone else on here. I can't imagine that, and without giving out too much information, that they're selling hundreds or thousands of these $12,000 to $20,000 drones out there. It's a very specialized market for it. So we need to make sure that we support them and that people are using these things, because their ROI is just as important as our ROI at least.
One last thing, is there anything specific that any of you are looking for, or maybe you've already seen at this show, this NAB, that you're impressed by? I mean, is there a need, or have you had a need satisfied? Anything remarkable that you've seen so far?
All right, well, I got to plug in full disclosure, I'm a reseller for the Shot Over U1. I think that's something that's truly unique that's just come out this year. It's a really different, and I only got involved with them because I wanted to buy one. I liked it so much. It really answered the requirements I was looking for as a user. To the point I got so passionate about it, they're like, well, you just want to be a reseller too? And so that's why I'm involved with them.
What's the main feature of that? What's the main attribute that
it's professional grade. There's no plastic in it. It's built for aerial cinematographers from the ground
quality,
up.
And they know cinematography. Okay. Anything else come to mind? I know it's an unfair question because everyone's so busy at this show, but
yeah, I haven't had a chance to get around and look at all the new toys, but I'll report back.
All right. Anything on your wish list?
It's I've actually been really impressed with the camera, for drone-specific camera technology that's out here. Seeing a lot of the stuff that's in VR, and obviously for my day job, the stuff that I work on, VR and 360 or augmented reality,
Right.
is pretty amazing. But yeah, being able to be out here and see that there are cameras now that integrate with the primary camera, much cleaner, much closer, is great.
All right. I think we are going to wrap up at this point. And thank you. Oh, we're not going to wrap. We have time to take questions. All right, do we have any questions from the audience? Anybody been listening? Want more detail on something?
Where's Jonathan?
Yeah, where did Jonathan go?
Then I have a question. What's more important for you when you look for the quality of a camera that comes in a camera-equipped drone, not a system where you actually decide what kind of camera body you have, your lens, that's sort of a common choice between you and the cinematographer or the director, and say, okay, I want to shoot with this and this and that, and that's my preferred lens. What is your selection process when you say, okay, smaller system, integrated camera, what do you look for?
I'll say right off the bat, the new Alexa Mini has that's the camera we've been waiting for in this industry, and they did an excellent job gearing that camera specifically towards our needs. With their WCU4 control unit, we're able to pull focus in a modular system. You just plug the focus motor in, we can pull focus up to 2,000 feet, start, stop, record. Before that, we were having to have all kinds of different systems to trigger the camera in the air, and just having to incorporate all these different setups to really make everything work together as one in the air. And they really answered a lot of those questions with that camera. But I definitely think it speaks to how strong this industry is and what an impact it's going to have over the next few years, because all the camera manufacturers are making cameras that are specifically or somewhat specifically built for drones.
Yeah, and I completely agree. The Alexa Mini was something that we were waiting for forever. That's actually being used as a primary camera. The number one question that we would get is, what type of camera can I shoot to match the look of Log-C and the Alexa Mini, or I'm sorry, of the Alexa that was being used as a primary camera. Now it's basically, if you're shooting primary with Alexa, shoot aerials with Alexa. Log-C all the way across. It's a beautiful match.
And then it's a balance. I mean, we have this artificial 55-pound limit. So it's a balance of weight versus performance. That, okay, if what lens do you want to go with your camera? Do you really need zoom, or would you rather have a bigger, better prime lens and do your zooming with the aircraft? Or is zooming the right requirement for the shot? In which case you got to go with a little bit lighter lens to stay under 55 pounds, but have lens control. So everything's unique. It's a conversation with the DP every single time to find the right tool for the right job.
All right.
All right, on this,
thank you
very much
to
our guests and to our audience. And I want to invite people to actually go and visit Drone booth, which you can actually find a B&H booth there too, with a number of interesting technology, new and recent. And thank you very much.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.